Why, hello. How are you? I'm so excited to be back for another episode of the Product Biz podcast. We had a little bit of a break last week because most of you probably know that I had our free live training, How to Create a Thriving Handmade Business Without Relying on Markets, on May 15th, which was just a couple weeks ago. Following that, we opened the doors to Product Biz Academy. Had 14 incredible new members join Product Biz Academy. And last week was our kickoff call, and I had a couple other calls with my existing members that I just didn't get around to recording a podcast episode. It was my bye week. That's what they call it in football, right? When a team doesn't play for a week or something like that, right? It was my bye week because it was a lot of excitement with the free training, a lot of excitement with the new members, a lot of excitement with the kickoff call, and a lot of work that goes into a big production like that. So I was giving myself some space just to fully be there for my members. And I just want to say thank you if you hung out at the free training, if you watched the replay. We gave away a Rolo printer, one of those fancy label printers, so you don't have to print the label, cut it, and tape it onto the package. And instead, you just print it through the Rolo printer onto sticker paper, perfectly cut to size, that you just stick it on the package when you have an online order and you ship that bad boy out. So we gave away a Rolo printer. We had an awesome 2 hours together learning how to grow your business. And just a great week really highlighting the existing members of Product Biz Academy, their incredible results. If you were hanging out on Instagram, then you heard from Rose from Sweet Rosie Soaps, who grew her business from being in one store to being in 49 stores while she was in Product Biz Academy. Daisy, who had her first almost a six-figure year in 2023, $93,000 year. And her products are in, I want to say, about 160 stores since joining Product Biz Academy. You heard from Erin from No Poo Products, who had a $1,700 sales day, just one old day of the year, how she's hired, how she's made her business easier on her. You've heard from Laura on the podcast episode from 2 weeks ago about how she sold her necklaces and is selling her necklaces that are priced between $350 and $550 each, and has over, I want to say, like 60 sales on Etsy now. I mean, I'll let you do the math, but that is just incredible to have a higher priced item and to see traction on a place like Etsy. So you heard her inspirational story as well. And those are some of my members that I love to expose you to. And we had so much more lined up too. There was actually supposed to be a couple more Instagram live interviews, but with discovery calls and people wanting to join PBA and coordinating with their schedules, I had to cancel a couple of the calls. But really, all the PBA members, their stories are so inspiring. And why I share those stories with you, I'm going to go on a little tangent because this isn't even what we're talking about today, but we're going to flow with it. Why I share these inspirational stories with you is to show you what's possible. It was so interesting. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to a business owner who was there. I was there speaking on next level Etsy strategy, and I was talking to this business owner who was attending, who was learning how to grow their business from being at this conference. And she has a massively successful business. And when we were speaking, she was saying how challenging her business is on her, and it's growing, and it's actually generating a ton of revenue, a ton of profit. It's extremely successful, but it's so hard for her. And she wants to hire, but she can't find the right people, and she's not getting the right people who are applying, or she's having issues with her employees, and she wants to get her own space, but she just doesn't know how or can't find the space, and she wants to buy a space, so she's waiting until she can buy it. And there were all these great conversations that we were having. And every single one, I was just trying to flip her mindset of like, hiring actually doesn't have to be hard. I have members who are hiring and have great employees. And sure, maybe there are some corrective conversations that need to happen every once in a while. And that's what it means to be a manager. And getting a space doesn't have to be challenging. Like, sure, it's going to take some legwork to find a space and rent a space. And maybe there's a dream of buying a space in the future. But the moral from what I took of that conversation is Like, business doesn't have to be hard. And put yourself in rooms where business is made to be simpler and where people are doing these things. Like, if you're struggling with hiring or finding a space for your business, put yourself in the room where people are hiring and have success stories and can show you what's possible and can answer your questions to guide you through those situations. And you can take this in any way. If you're struggling to get more online sales, if you're struggling to get Etsy sales, please do not stay in the Etsy groups that are bashing Etsy because your sales aren't going to grow when you're surrounded by all this negativity around Etsy and how they're going to close your shop for no reason and the fees are too high. Why don't you go into a space where people are showing how incredible Etsy actually has been for their business? And how is that shift in perspective going to change how you show up? And how is that shift in possibility going to change in what you think is possible for you? So it was interesting to have that conversation, which highlighted for me why I need to share more success stories of my members. It's not to brag about Product Biz Academy. Maybe there's a little bit of being braggadocious to show you like how great it is inside PBA. It's primarily to show you what's possible for you when you dream big, when you go after what scares you, when you take that leap, when you bet on yourself. And it also shows you what's possible in the small business world. That actually it's not as saturated as you think. Or if it is saturated, you can be successful even though it's saturated. And that you can get into stores and you can have success online and you can step away from markets. And you can hire a team and you can get your weekends back and you can grow on Etsy and you can get into more stores and you can grow your business no matter what other people around you may or may not be saying. So thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for seeing how to approach your business differently. Thank you for listening to my incredible members and their stories. And thank you for hopefully getting re-inspired for how you show up for your business. Now, what I want to talk about today is a really, really, really fun topic. Like this is just super fun for me. And this is something that we do in Product Biz Academy, and I'll tell you how we do it to bring this fun to life. But really what I want to talk about today is how to get more comfortable with talking on your Instagram stories, or really like talking about your business in general, maybe even doing an Instagram live, anything that involves talking about you and your business and your products. The reason this is important is because, number one, obviously, if you're listening, you're a business owner. Number two, most business owners feel, I don't know the word, guilty to talk about their business, or they don't want all eyes on them, or they don't want to talk about their business and maybe feel like they said something wrong or something stupid. And there's all of these fears of judgment of others that prevent us from actually talking about our business and our products, and prevent us from showing up online, and prevent us from being the fullest expression of ourselves. And this, even to this day, can happen to me. I mean, we all doubt ourselves at certain points in our business journey, and I wish it was this just one step of like, let me overcome self-doubt and I'll never have to deal with it again. But actually the self-doubt and the fear of judgment and what are people going to say is a recurring theme for most people in their businesses. And every time that fear of judgment or that self-doubt is a little bit bigger, it's a bigger step. Now it's a little puddle you got to step over. Now it's a bigger puddle. Now it's a lake. Now it feels like it's an ocean and you got to somehow get to the other side. So this is something that comes up for me too, which is why I want to talk about it today, because I noticed this within myself, within some of my members, within other small business owners. And I put my thinking cap on how do we overcome this fear of judgment and this fear of talking about our business? Because here's the truth. You're a business owner. If you don't talk about your business, if you don't talk about your products, good luck selling more products. And good luck making more money. And maybe that's what you're experiencing right now of like, oh my gosh, I want to make more money. However, you're maybe not talking about your products on Instagram, or not showing your face or showing you, or giving people more of that information about your products that they may need. Now, if you know me, you know that I love social media because I look at it as a way to flex and grow the muscle of public speaking and marketing. So when a lot of people say they don't like social media, I'm like, cool, I don't like social media either. I actually hate social media. I hate social media. I hate that celebrities are on social media. It's trying to sway people's opinions. I hate that everyone shows shiny, just the highlight reel. I hate that it's propaganda. I hate that there's marketing from all these other companies that maybe don't have the best, the best interest of you in mind. There's so much about social media. It's like competitive. It leads to comparison. Yeah, it's addicting. It's addicting on purpose. I mean, don't go down that rabbit hole of these apps and phones and things are created to purposely addict you so that you don't achieve your highest purpose in life. Those are my views on social media. However, I can get over my hate for social media when I switch the perspective and think of it as this is a way for me to show about my business and impact people with my business and practice public speaking and marketing, because that's what social media is in a nutshell. So when we talk about showing up and sharing more of ourselves on social media, it's part of the game. And it's one of those pieces that you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and be like, if you want to be a business owner, you got to understand this part of the game. Think of someone who plays basketball and wants to be successful in basketball, but refuses to learn how to dribble. Maybe they're great at the free throws or the 3-pointers or the layups minus the dribbling, right? But they just refuse to learn how to dribble and they suck at dribbling. And every time they try to dribble the ball, like me, if you listen to the episode where I talked about being a bench warmer, every time they try to dribble, they lose the ball or it leads to a turnover or they just mishandle the ball and it leads to a travel and then the other team gets the ball because you just don't know what you're doing with the ball, right? That person can say that they want to be successful in basketball all that they want, but until they actually commit to learning how to dribble and understanding that this is a necessary part of the game, they won't be successful as they want. So that's how I see social media. It's a necessary part of the game. Might as well learn how to love it. Might as well have fun with it. Might as well overcome these fears that are being present to you when you're on social media. And this is actually how we can take this one layer deeper of what if you used social media as a mirror to show you where you aren't free, where you still have fear of judgment, fear of what will my high school best friend say who I haven't talked to in 10 years, fear of what will my in-laws say, fear of what will a stranger say, fear of what if people say they don't like my voice, the fear of what if I mess up and say something stupid. What if you use social media as a mirror to see where you are not free, so that you can then work on that and become free and no longer care about these fears of judgment or whatever it may be. So I want to help you make that a little bit easier, because hopefully by now you're like, yeah, you're right. Social media is necessary and I have some fears around it and I want to slay these dragons and get to the other side of the lake. And this is what I brought to Product Biz Academy. If you are struggling with showing up on social media, here's what I want you to do. It's the simplest and silliest thing that you can do that's going to have a domino effect that I'm going to share with you what that domino effect is. What I want you to do is make a commitment to yourself for the next week. Every time you are in a public space, if you're going for a walk, if you're at the grocery store, if you're at the coffee shop, if you are, I don't know where else people go, because those are the main places that I go on a weekly basis. If you're out in public, I want you to go up to a stranger in every single one of those situations for the next week, every time you are out in public, and ask them what the time is. Now, like I said, this is silly, so let me explain to you why we're doing this. Number one, you have to not actually need to know the time. This is like you got your phone in your pocket or you got your Apple Watch on your wrist, and you could easily tell yourself what the time is. But you are going to go out of your way and ask a stranger for something when you actually don't even need that from them. And that's what makes it a little bit different versus like, oh, I went up to this stranger because I really needed to know the time. I was running late. I left my phone in the car versus I'm going to go up to a stranger. I actually don't even need this piece of information, but I'm going to ask them for it. Now, here's why we're doing this. I told you this sounds silly, but I did this. And I'm going to tell you like what I went through and also how we make this bigger and also how it relates to Instagram. So stick with me here, okay? Here's what's going to happen. Especially if you're an introvert like me, which most of the people who gravitate towards me are the introverts. So you're probably one of us, right? I started doing this a couple weeks ago. And the first time I did it is when I went for my morning walk. And I said, every single person that I see on this walk, I'm going to ask them the time. The first person came by and I literally like froze. I froze and I didn't ask them. And afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, why is something so simple so difficult? Now the next person came by and I was like gearing myself up, talking myself up. All right, Monica, you can do this. You can do this. And I asked them the time, but here's how the interaction went. We were passing each other and they said good morning. And I was so in my head that I said, do you know the time? And then they gave me the time and then I said, thank you. And I kept walking. And I was like, okay, that interaction was a little bit better, but I kind of cut them off. I just got to the point. They said good morning. I didn't even say that back. Okay. I'm noticing these things. Third person walks by and they're with their dog. And I can tell this person was just very much focusing on the dog. The dog wasn't on a leash. The dog was walking and this person was monitoring the dog. And as I was going to ask them the time, I had a little thought that popped up that said, I don't want to bother this person. So I didn't ask them the time, and then I kept going. Now, as I'm walking, I'm contemplating these 3 scenarios of what happened and how this can relate to social media. The first person, I just froze. I felt awkward. I felt stupid. I didn't want to do it. The second person, I just totally word vomited and just got it over with. And the third person, I said, I don't want to bother them. That third one is what I really want to highlight. Because if I have a belief that me asking someone for the time, something as simple as this person taking out their phone to say 3 words back to me, a 20-second interaction, if I have a belief that I'm bothering that person to do something so simple, can you see how me showing up on my Instagram stories and talking on my stories, I'm going to have a belief in my head saying, oh, I'm bothering people. This is going to be a waste of their time. Do they even care? Are they going to listen to this? Or am I just bothering them, showing up again, talking about my business again? So I started to notice these things. And if you actually do this and pay attention to the thoughts that come up, have awareness of your thoughts, because you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness of your thoughts. Notice those thoughts and then grow from them. Fourth person came by after I had already assessed these situations in my head. And he said, good morning. I said, good morning. I said, hey, do you also have the time? And he shared with me the time. And I said, thank you so much. Have a great day. Cool. That interaction already felt a lot easier. And then as I was getting back to my apartment, there was a lady who was on her balcony and she lives on the main floor. So she was in her home on her balcony. And I'm like, oh shoot, this is the 5th person. She's literally in her home on her balcony. Am I going to holler and be like, hey, do you know the time over the balcony? But I was like, shit, I got to do it. I committed to this. So as I was walking by, I asked her the time, and she gave me the time. One thing that came from this exercise, and I'm going to elaborate on a lot of mini micro takeaways from this, is that every single person was so nice and inviting and open to giving me the time. There was not one person that like scowled at me and said, oh my God, you're a loser, or wow, you're a failure, where's your phone? Or what type of person asked that type of question? There was not one person who reacted in that way. Now, can you see how this can relate to social media? Because we think people are going to react and judge us and send us hateful messages and call us stupid. When I just went and asked people what the time was, and every single person was so kind back to me, it honestly gave me a little bit of hope in humanity. Like, oh, wow, people actually are pretty nice. Versus when we're on social media, we hear all these hate stories of how you can get canceled, which, I mean, does happen. Or people can say nasty things to you, which can happen. Or people leave nasty comments, which again can happen. But the majority of the people, and what we really should focus on, are the ones who are nice and the ones who are there for the journey and along for the ride. So this is so interesting on how this transformed for me, because then I continued to do it for the rest of the week. I went to Whole Foods, asked a random person for the time, went into a coffee shop, asked a random person for the time, and it became easier and easier and easier to speak up for myself, to say something, and to not care about what they thought. Can you see how those are valuable skills for talking on your Instagram stories? And what really transpired, which is so interesting, is a couple days ago I was at the pool, because in Arizona it is getting pretty freaking hot. We're in the triple digits. I think it's like 110 degrees today. So we're getting a little spicy. And I was at the pool a couple days ago, and it's very interesting in the place where I live that anyone and everyone can play their speaker by the pool. Now, call me an old lady if you want to, but I like to go by the pool and read a book and have it be nice and calming and quiet and relaxing. And everyone around me is like party people blasting speakers, playing beer pong in the pool. And I'm like, where does a 32-year-old woman go to leisurely read a book these days and sit in the sun? So anyways, I just deal with it, which is fine, right? But it was so interesting because I went by the pool a couple days ago, and this was earlier in the day, probably like 10:30, I want to say. And it was super quiet. No one was there. It was just me. That's my dream. Can't wait till I have my own pool and this becomes a reality where I don't have to worry about party people and just hang out in my backyard, right? And it was so nice. And then these two ladies come down and they put their speaker on really loud. And I was like, okay, you know what? I've been practicing kind of speaking up for myself in this weird way of asking people the time. So I'm just going to go up to them and see if they can turn it down a little bit. So I went up to them and I said, good morning. It's so nice to meet you. I'm over here trying to read a book. Do you mind if you just turn the volume down a little bit? And believe it or not, they were so nice about it. Like everyone who I asked the time was also so nice. And they turned it down. And I was like, holy shit. This actually works. So it was just super interesting to see that path of what happened in a week, from not wanting to ask someone the time, from thinking that I'm bothering people for speaking up, to being able to ask any stranger the time, and also being able to speak up for myself and ask strangers to turn the speaker down a little bit, right? Now, if you're an introvert, then you know that this actually can take some effort. Because for me, I'm an introvert. However, I've been a business owner. I've spoken on stages in front of 900 plus people. I have a podcast. I'm constantly on my Instagram stories. I'm constantly hosting coaching calls with my members. And I still struggle with this. So I know if you're a business owner and maybe you aren't doing those things of putting yourself out there in uncomfortable situations, then I highly recommend for you to do this very simple thing of, for the next week, ask as many strangers as you can for the time, when you don't even need to know the time, and see how you shift. Because what's also interesting is while this happened, I started to show up more in my stories. And I normally am pretty active on my stories, but this exercise made it easier. And it's mind-blowing because it's so freaking simple. And most people, hopefully not you, are going to be like, yeah, okay, cool, but I'm not going to do this because it's so simple. Don't underestimate something just because it's simple. Sometimes the simplest things have the biggest impact. So what I like to do in Product Biz Academy is when I have these monumental moments like this, maybe it doesn't sound monumental, but to me it's pretty monumental. I love to bring this into Product Biz Academy and make a little, challenge out of it. And I swear to God, my members are like, dude, this girl is weird. Because I came to my members call that I hosted and I said, we're doing a challenge. I want you to go up to as many strangers as you can over the next week and ask them for the time. And then I gave a caveat because some people actually are comfortable with that. There's some extroverts in my program or people who this doesn't faze them. So it was like, okay, cool. Ask for the time when you don't need it. Or ask them if they've seen your pet dog. Ask someone if they've seen your pet turtle. Like, crank up the weirdness if asking for the time is comfortable for you. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. And there's a beautiful quote that my voice coach, Tracy Goodwin, who is absolutely incredible, has been saying over and over and over for the last 6 weeks as I've been working with her, which is, get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Because a lot of times we want to wait until something uncomfortable feels comfortable before we do it. We want to wait until we have confidence. We want to wait until we have more sales and feel better about our business before we talk on our stories. We want to wait until XYZ before we do something. And everything that she's been teaching me is get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Get comfortable doing multiple things per week that are uncomfortable. Because if you wait until it's comfortable, number one, it may never happen. And it's going to be on your to-do list forever because it never becomes comfortable. Or it's going to take you like 6 months to become comfortable with it when you can just do it when you're uncomfortable and get comfortable being uncomfortable and squash that lesson now instead of later. So I brought this challenge to my members, and it's super fun because we have another call coming up on Monday. And whenever I do these challenges, I make it really fun. We have our members community. I announce the challenge. People have to share what they're doing, how they're doing it, what thoughts are coming up, what results they're seeing, all this fun stuff. And then I choose a winner and I send a prize. So it's not just like for no reason. You can get a prize for this if you're inside Product Biz Academy. And I love to do this because these are the things that most people don't focus on or don't work on or don't think are important. So that's why I love to incentivize with a little bit of a prize winner. But also it's these soft skills that truly, truly matter. The soft skill of public speaking, the soft skill of showing up, the soft skill of doing what's uncomfortable. Now, if you're in Product Biz Academy, I think this episode is dropping before our next members call. I created the most fun 2.0 challenge that we're going to do. And if you're listening, feel free to do this yourself. That we're going to take this to the next level. And I created a bingo card, which has a ton of these small little uncomfortable exercises that we're going to do, each person in PBA can do. And as you get a bingo, right? 5 across, 5 diagonal, 5 up and down, you can win a prize. And some of these items on this bingo sheet are going to be things that just make us uncomfortable. For example, let me pull it up and tell you what's on this bingo card, if I can find it here in my notes. For example, it's going to be things like going up to a stranger and asking for the time. It's also going to be things like having a conversation with the cashier or having a conversation with the waitress. It's also going to be things like taking a selfie and posting it on your stories, which is uncomfortable for some people. Taking a selfie in a public space. Talking on your stories when you're in a public space. Talking on your stories when family is around. Because for me, that's a big one. I always have to tell my husband to like, hey, can you please step outside for 5 minutes while I record this story? Because I don't know, it just feels awkward. Also, there's going to be fun things like doing a 15-minute Instagram live. That's going to be the one right in the middle where every single bingo has to go through that, because that's the epitome of what this challenge is about. Being able to authentically show up and talk about your business. And we're going to have other things just to like loosen up a little bit, like dance while you're driving in the car, not caring what other people think of you, or dance in the car while your family is in the car with you, not caring what they think about you. Let me see if there's any other fun ones. And of course, what I'm going to do is leave a couple empty spots to ask my members what's uncomfortable and add it to the bingo as well. So we have some really fun just challenges like this. Because if you're reading in between the lines, you can see this bingo card that I'm talking about is making you feel more comfortable doing uncomfortable things around your family and around strangers. So that when you go on your Instagram stories, you're no longer wondering, what is my family going to think? What are these strangers going to think? And you can just show up as yourself. How awesome would that be? How awesome would it be that on social media, we don't have to like put our lipstick on and fix our hair, and we can just show up as we are? Or we don't have to practice what we're going to say and redo it 15 times before we get the perfect 60-minute clip to put on our Instagram stories. What if we just accepted who we are, understood that most people aren't going to judge us, and if they do, it's not the end of the world, and just showed up in that way to talk about our business, to talk about our products, and to make the impact that we are meant to make in this world. So that's my fun little update for you. If you do this mini challenge of asking strangers for the time, send me a DM on Instagram at Monica Little Coaching and just let me know how it was. Let me know how it was for you, what came up. Be aware of those thoughts. And if you're in Product Biz Academy, be ready for a fun bingo challenge. I'm thinking of some like pretty big prizes for this one, like first place, second place, third place, and having some pretty impressive things on there just to help you step outside of your comfort zone. And if you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds fun, and this type of challenge would be even more fun if it was within a community where other people are doing it, where we're all growing together, when we can cheer each other on, when we can laugh at each other together and laugh at ourselves together. Well, I encourage you to join the Product Biz Academy priority notification list. This is where you can submit your name and email address if you are ready to join Product Biz Academy and you're like, damn, I messed up by not joining in May when doors were open. Because then you'll get all the details on when doors open next. But this is only for the person who's like ready. Don't join the priority notification list if you're like, maybe like it would be cool, or wouldn't it be nice? Join this list if you're like, hell yeah, if I had the opportunity to join today, I would do it. And man, I'm kicking myself for not doing it 2 weeks ago. Which in my mind should be like every person who didn't join, because we have a pretty cool community, support, guidance, results, more sales, more fun, all the above. So that is at monicalittlecoaching.com/PBA waitlist. PBA as in Product Biz Academy waitlist. That's all I got for you today. If you love this episode, let me know. I'll see you next week. Thank you for hanging out with me here on the Product Biz Podcast.